and in no small part that's due to your prayers and also due for your financial support. If any of you have a son or a grandchild or someone in college, you know how much it costs. Imagine that multiplied by 60. So your donations are very, very well appreciated. I'd just like to make a few comments tonight. I imagine most of us, when we turn on the TV by now, are getting a little tired of the politics and the constant reporting of the polls and who's where and who's running to be our next president. There have been some very unusual happenings in this race for presidency. I'm not going to be political, but take, for instance, Donald Trump. When he was asked to name his favorite book in an interview, he said, as much as I'd love to say The Art of the Deal, that's the book he wrote, he said, nope, I'll take the Bible all the way. And then when he was asked, do you like the New Testament or the Old Testament better, he said, oh, probably equal. The whole Bible is just incredible. This is from a man who called communion my little wine and my little cracker. Now, why do I bring this up? In this presidential campaign, and this is something unusual for our country, religion seems to be important. Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, the issue of religion is looming large in people's minds when they're dealing with those who are running for the highest office in our country. Today, it's practically a pro forma exercise for a presidential candidate to talk about his faith and talk about how his faith will influence some of his decisions. You know, every year the president goes to the National Prayer Breakfast. It's a bipartisan gathering in Washington, and basically to discuss the role of God and the role of religion in people's lives. Doesn't it seem strange in a country that prides itself on the idea of the separation of church and state? I mean, we have so many of our laws pushing God out of the public forum, and while that's happening, people are questioning and wanting to know about the faith of their public leaders. Many of us are old enough to remember the presidential election of 1960, November 8th, when the youngest president of the United States was elected. Do you remember what he said about his faith? Remember, there was a very strong anti-Catholic feeling. People were afraid that if John Kennedy was getting elected, that he would follow his faith, and Catholicism would influence his decisions. This is what he said: I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who happens also to be Catholic. And then he made it clear, quote, the kind of church I believe in should be only important to me. What a disastrous statement, and how far we've come from that today, thank God. He took a very tough position in his day, but it is no longer a position that most people take. For today, faith and religion play a major part in our political debates. Now, I want to ask a question. That's the fact. How is this possible that people seem more interested in religion while the number of people who are no longer affiliated with the church is growing and growing? How is it that people are talking about religion if these unaffiliated individuals are becoming more and more secular in their outlook? There are fewer people of these unaffiliated group that they don't go to church hardly ever. Maybe they'll pray once in a while, and they don't find religion to be very important. However, while that number seems to be growing, those who do go to church, those who belong to a community, are actually showing greater and greater devotion and commitment to their religion. And I think that's explaining why religion is now becoming a major issue in political discussion. Instead of decreasing their witness to the faith in an age of secularism, many faithful people, including many faithful Protestants and Catholics, are deeply committed and unafraid to speak what they think. Religion is important. And as much as some people like to make us believe, faith is not dying in America. Our country is, from its foundation, basically a spiritual and religious enterprise. The growth of secularism should be a warning to us that we ourselves have to become more and more of witnesses in terms of what we believe in the public forum. And if I were to ask the question, how can we, as practicing Catholics, hold back the tide of growing secularism? What is causing more and more young people on college campuses to turn away from the practice of the faith, to see religion as not belonging in the public forum? What is causing that, and how can we deal with it? Well, I'll give a very simple answer. We are facing what is called a discipleship deficit. We have many, many people that still go to church, but their spiritual growth becomes stunted. They never take the next step in the journey of being a disciple. In the Great Commission, Jesus said at the end of Matthew's Gospel, "Go out into the world and make disciples of all people." Discipleship, being a learner, is an exciting adventure that doesn't stop. It goes on for one's entire life. And so, not only in Catholicism, but Protestant ministers are beginning to talk about this across the spectrum of churches. Believers are failing to engage in that next step in becoming deeper in their relationship with Jesus and with his church. Ask yourself this question. Ask it quietly in the conscience of your heart. How much time do you, as a practicing Catholic, spend in individual prayer? Not Sunday Mass, not the Rosary, but how much time do you spend opening the Word of God every day and entering into a personal conversation with Jesus? That's what discipleship is all about. It's growing in our love relationship with the Lord every single day by listening to his Word. And so my answer to the question is, how are we going to stem the tide of secularism? It's by creating robust, strong disciples of our faithful Catholics so that they can go into the world and change the world for the better. I'll conclude with this one remark. How are we going to do that? How are we going to make them Catholics, more faithful disciples? The end of Matthew's Gospel, go into the world, make disciples, the great mandate. That's the command that Jesus gives right before he ascends in Matthew's Gospel. That command should be matched with the very first command that God ever gave in the Bible. Do you know what that was? Be fruitful and multiply. The first command that Jesus ever gave, that God ever gave when he created the world, was form family. Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply, form your own family, form the human family. When our families are strong, when the faith is strong in our families, because we ourselves are faithful, robust disciples, then we will be able to change the world. Many thanks for your attention. Many thanks for all that you do for the good of the church. And I am so proud that you belong to the greatest diocese in the state of New Jersey.